This week on PlayStation Rumble, we show physics the middle finger as we rewind and wall run our way through PlayStation 2 classic Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. Hello, my name is Jamie, and joining me is friend and fellow gamer, a man who recently bought Golf with Your Friends because I basically made him a true PlayStation homie. It's Tony.
What up?
You enjoying Golf with Your Friends, Tony?
Oh, it's certainly the best golf game I've ever played.
I'm glad. And joining us for his debut on PlayStation Rumble, a man whose quick witticisms will put a smile on your face no matter how cross you are. It's Joshua.
This is very true. My wit is very quick.
Bravo, Jamie, because you're like, I can't rhyme his name, and then it's like this, like a haiku.
I'm going to take this moment to say we're very excited to have you on the show, Joshua. But I'll be retiring the rhyming intros because basically your name rhymes with nothing.
This is also true.
Instantly a spanner in the work. I'm sure you didn't get many schoolyard names with any sort of rhyme.
No, there were no funny anachronisms or any fun play on words with my name. It was just Josh. So they had to resort picking on my physical features instead.
a good plan B. Well, I thought I'd give you the sweet nectar of what a rhyming intro was before I had to rip it away, much to the listeners' relief, I think. So Joshua, it'd be great to find out what sort of games you're into and your sort of history with PlayStation.
Yeah, well, I'll go through a bit of history with PlayStation. It was one of the first systems I ever played. We had a PlayStation 1, and I played a lot of Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, the run-of-the-mill stuff. And we played a lot of Oddworld Abe's Exodus. And then from there, we had a PlayStation 2 in the house, and we played everything under the sun and then some on that. We played just about everything you could think of. We played the first party stuff like Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, and I also played a lot of shovelware, a lot of movie tie-ins. And as a child, I loved them. As an adult, I couldn't even remember what they were. And then we went to PlayStation 3 fairly late, played a bunch of stuff on that. I owned a PlayStation 4 for a while, and I even owned a PSP. Did not get into the Vita, and nowadays I own a PlayStation 5. So I'm very familiar with the brand. And then in terms of the games I play, I'm fairly open in terms of what I like, but I play a lot of platformers. I'm really big into RPGs. Some fighting games. I'm not really into sports games or tactical games. But other than that, I cast a pretty wide net when it comes to games I'm willing to play.
And with fighting games, do you mean like old school fighting games like Tekken and Street Fighter, or are you talking more like third person, first person?
Fighting games more so like Tekken, Street Fighter. I was competing casually in Smash Brothers for a while. I would go to tournaments, and I got really into...
I don't think anyone plays that game, competes in that game casually.
I got into Mortal Kombat and Injustice and Soul Calibur.
Fighting games are always like a genre I truly respect the player base of, but also it is fucking... I bought the Tekken 7, and it is impenetrable.
Yes.
They do not onboard people onto fighting games nowadays.
Yeah, they don't... They just make you swim with the sharks.
Yeah, yeah, and they tore me to bits. So a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to be playing Max Payne for the PS2 in April. That'd be April the 15th. So if you want to play along with that, you've got some time to do that. I'm very excited and looking forward to it. We are playing a lot of PS2 games. I mean, as you said, Joshua, the PS2 has a huge library of games, for better or worse.
I've been trying to think of what PS1 game, but then I'm like, oh, Max Payne, I haven't played that in decades, so we'll get there someday.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just have to make you play Crash Bandicoot, I guess, one day.
If it's Crash 2, I'll play Crash 2.
Wait, have you not played Crash Bandicoot, Tony?
Only Crash game I like is Part 2.
Dude, what are you smoking, and can I have some?
I just didn't like the first one, and I really like the second one.
Have you played the third one?
Probably the demo, but I never.
Dude.
I tried to play the remake, but the physics was all over the place. I didn't like it.
I like the remake. I think that is.
It just felt the jumping. It just something about it felt off.
I think it was a slightly different arc, but I think it was probably a bit easier.
Yeah, I'm with Jamie on that one. Remake all the way.
Oh well.
But honestly, they fucking repackaged my childhood and like gave it to me.
Sold it to us at a bargain price too.
Yeah.
They didn't even charge us full price for that.
Can I get the racing game as well? Yeah, sure, go for it. Oh,
Nitro Field is so good.
Me and Jamie aren't big on Horizon, and I'm not big on Crash. It's kind of like.
I think everyone's got this in their repertoire, haven't they? Like games that everyone loves that they're just like, I haven't even touched it, or actually don't like it.
Well, it's like I was talking to Tony about Guardians of the Galaxy and how he really enjoyed it, and I was really mid on it. And I was talking to my wife, and I said it's sort of like when you don't like a game that everyone else likes, that it feels kind of like the Twilight Zone. People are like, yeah, this game's really good. And I'm like, am I going crazy? Are there body snatchers around? Did I even play the same game? I don't know what's happening.
I mean, I'm the only person, as we were talking about earlier, who doesn't seem to be like literally wetting their pants for Elden Ring. That's the one, isn't it?
I think it's partially like some like FOMO, like people are like, oh, they don't want to fear that they're missing out on something, even though like you don't have to play or have to like every game. Twitter is going crazy right now over Elden Ring fans versus Horizon fans, and it's like insane. It's the worst thing I've seen in like the console wars thing, and like since I was like, I don't know, high school. It's really bad.
Horizon needs to give itself a break and stop releasing next to like the biggest games of the century.
Yeah, that's the meme. The one meme was like a few weeks after Horizon, the first one released, Breath of the Wild came out, and just like and it's funny because I thought Horizon came out after Breath of the Wild. So it's
no, I remember when Zero Dawn came out, and I really wanted it because robot dinosaurs really speak to me on a philosophical level, and but I'm also a huge Nintendo fan, and the Switch looked great, and Breath of the Wild came out, and they're like, yeah, Breath of the Wild's coming out 3 days after Zero Dawn, and I said, sorry, Sony, Nintendo's getting my money this time. I'll get back to Horizon later.
Yeah, like I said, I swear to God, I thought Horizon came out like a month later. That's the big splash that Breath of the Wild originally made. And then now they released it right after, right before Elden Ring, and it's like, it's deja vu.
And Gran Turismo next week as well, if anyone, which isn't for everyone's taste,
if you're into that sort of thing.
Successful game.
I didn't even realize that a GT game was coming out, but.
I think one of the only games that ranks above Elden Ring at the moment is Gran Turismo 5, which I didn't realize was like so well reviewed. But
yeah, where are all these Gran Turismo fans? I've never met one. Where are they all coming from? And it sells so well. And people are like, yo, Gran Turismo's awesome. Like, where are you guys? Where are you? Are you hiding?
Just in a cupboard with a steering wheel.
Yeah,
and,
they just never leave their homes because they're just playing Gran Turismo.
Yeah, those racing sims, like that Gran Turismo, like straight racing sims, I'm more of an arcadey, or kind of like the Forza one that just came out, Forza 4, or what was it called?
Forza looks good. Forza Horizon 5.
Yeah, Forza Horizon, I have fun with, but that's arcadey, so...
Bring back Burnout, man. I'm ready.
I would want another...
ready for a new Burnout.
I want another Burnout Paradise. Like, I think Forza Horizon is the closest thing to Burnout Paradise.
This episode, we've been playing Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. Prince of Persia: Sands of Time is a 3D action-adventure game released by Ubisoft in 2003. It's got parkour, combat, and puzzle-solving elements, with a story featuring the unnamed Prince of Persia as he goes on an adventure to use the Dagger of Time to save his palace from an invasion of skeleton zombies with swords.
And they are truly like skeleton zombies with swords. So yeah, 2003. What other games were out on 2003? You had like I mean, this game came out like it was in a month's touch of Beyond Good and Evil. How do you feel about that, Tony?
Beyond Good and what? We're talking about Prince of Persia. You know, a good game.
What other games came out in 2003? Yeah, Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker, Grand Theft Auto, Vice City, The Matrix, Jak and Daxter 2, Hit and Run. So it's kind of that like exciting. A couple of years into the PS2, people are like starting to get to know the hardware. A couple of good things are coming out. This game got like really good reception, didn't it?
Yes, I originally got it for the GameCube. I think I got this, and I think I want to say this, and I think I got Metroid Prime at the same time. Was it? I don't remember. I thought I got this. No, I got this. I'm thinking Eternal Darkness, which is like another like cult game, but that's for GameCube. This isn't GameCube Rumble, so we'll be talking about that. But yeah, I got that, and like,
how could we have a niche audience?
I think I got Prince of Persia, Eternal Darkness, and Hit and Run, Simpsons Hit and Run. It definitely made an impression.
It's sick. I'm just gonna like put that out on the table. It is so like I think like obviously it's like really inspired by Tomb Raider. It came from a 1989 game, Prince of Persia, which was like a 2D platformer going left to right, developed by.
That's also a game I'm familiar with. I remember playing like the demo. I played on DOS back in the day, and that's another dope little game.
It was developed by Jordan McCann. And like the original game was quite interesting because it kind of has like all the elements that Sand of Time has now, and I think it really kind of prides itself on graphics and movement. Like the movement, it was like retro. What's it called? It was rotoscoped.
Yeah.
He filmed his friends and family basically making jumps and rolls and stuff like that, and then he would like trace each frame of that onto the computer and then animate that. And so it had like a weirdly good like animation for the time. I mean, better than a lot of PS1 and PS2 games in the way of like realistic.
The animation still looks good now. Like when you see it, because it came out on everything. It came out like on Game Boy, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and all the major consoles at the time, and all the computers. It still looks pretty damn good because it just the animation flows so nicely.
Yeah, for sure. It seeing some gameplay, I was like, man, this just looks so good. It makes me think of, and to a lesser extent, a lot of the fighting animations in Mortal Kombat, where they would just have people doing all this crazy stuff and just trace it over.
Yes, that nearly kind of like too realistic sort of style that was in the sort of early 90s a lot. And then there was a sort of quite unsuccessful 3D, Prince of Persia 3D that came out in 1999.
Yes.
So like about 10 years later. Is that a favourite of yours too?
No, I think I played it and it was pretty garbage, if I recall. I don't know. I think I had a Dreamcast and I had like a burnt disc somewhere, and I think I played it very shortly. Yeah,
I don't think it was received too well. I don't think it sold too well. And then Ubisoft bought the rights to it, bought the rights to the franchise, but not. I think they bought the rights to the library, but not the IP that is Prince of Persia. So they had to sort of convince Jordan and McCann to let them sort of go ahead with the Sands of Time. And not only did he do that, he sort of came on board with it because he was so impressed about what the sort of team at Ubisoft Montreal were doing with the game. And Patrick Desolé was the director on the game, and weirdly enough, like he said that this game was like inspired by context-sensitive controls that he saw in sports games like NHL and Tony Hawk's, and you can like really sort of see that motion. Like motion is king in this gameplay, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
Tony, you said you played this game when it came out.
Yeah, around the time it came out. I actually think I got it that Christmas or maybe my birthday. I don't know. I don't remember. It's 20-something years ago. But yeah, I got it, and I remember it was great. There's really nothing like it, in the terms of like the overall, the scale of some of the things you do. 'Cause, at first it starts simple, but when you get more and more into the game, you can get lost in figuring out what to do. You can get lost in the little in the dungeons you jump around, and then of course if the reversing the time. It just made it like it was nothing else like it. Only thing that kind of came close to the slowing down time was like Max Payne. But like that's about it. Like no one really, they kind of took that a step further and just made this like handcrafted levels that just flowed perfectly. It was, I'm not going to say ahead of its time, but it came out at exactly the right time. And I think it there's a reason why it's still lauded as one of the greats, because it still plays pretty damn well for the most part, minus a few things which we'll probably touch in a little bit.
And Joshua, did you play this at the time, or did you come to it later?
So this was my first time playing any Prince of Persia game. I've heard a lot of talk about.
Oh, wow.
I've heard a lot of talk about Sands of Time and how people respect it. And I heard there was a remake coming out that people weren't too fond of the visuals for. But my only exposure to the Prince of Persia franchise was the movie that Disney made years ago.
Oh dear.
I was young. I was really young when the Sands of Time came out, so it's definitely not something that my parents would have let me play. But I did see the movie when it came out, and the movie left a really bad taste in my mouth.
The movie
thanks Disney.
That bad, but the movie wasn't that great either. So I remember watching the movie and being extremely underwhelmed.
Yeah, and they cast Jake Gyllenhaal as the Prince of Persia.
Yeah, he was all swollen. It was just like, okay.
They should have got Tom Holland to do it.
Oh
Tom
man,
Holland
they should have cast Mark Wahlberg as Farah.
So coming to it for the first time in 2022, how did you feel? Do you think we're wearing rose-tinted glasses, or do you think it is worth the hype?
No, I don't think you guys are wearing rose-tinted glasses. I agree with you, Jamie. This game is really sick. It's really rad, and if I had played it at the time, I probably would have really enjoyed it. Just the staging of the game, the environments, bouncing off walls to flip over dudes' heads, and blocking attacks and timing them and kicking them down. It's really cool stuff. I definitely get the respect of the game, especially considering when it came out, you didn't really have a lot of games with this kind of parkour, and the games that did sort of delve into this didn't have parkour that felt as good as it does in this game.
Mario Sunshine tried parkour.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Oh, I don't like Mario Sunshine. That's a topic for another day. I hate that game. Mario
Sunshine goes hard, and I will die on that game.
But even games that was it has deeply inspired Assassin's Creed and Uncharted. What they don't really share is in Uncharted, I feel like you're just kind of going through the motions. There's not a sort of working out thing. There's no quick flurries. It's just kind of you plod along. You're never having to think about it. You're never having to solve how am I getting from this bit to that bit, and how's that going to sort of be in exciting little flashes of a movement.
And when you try to, the game's go over here now. And you're but I wanted to figure it out myself.
Yeah, and there's just yellow things leading you the whole way. Whereas this game, I really the satisfaction of going, of course I've got to jump on that thing, and that's going to take me over there, and that's going to give me 4 seconds of parkour movement, and then the sort of satisfaction of doing those slow motion things wall running in this game is so good. It just feels good every time you do it. From the first time you do it to the end of the game, it's always nice to do those things. I thought I had played this game on the Wii, because I remember playing Prince of Persia, and I was it worked quite well because all the wall running was it just felt like one of those weird, so rare third party games that actually really worked on the Wii. And then when I was doing research for this game, I realised that there isn't a Sands of Time on the Wii. So I must have played one of the other two.
You either played the third one, because they ported the third one to the Wii, and also the Forgotten Times was ported to the Wii, which is
that the second one?
It takes place it takes place in some point in the games. They try to kind of, because I think it goes right after the reboot, and people were so disappointed with that, so this made another Sands of Time. And
I mean, it had the sands mechanic, and it felt really good. And for the next 10 to 12 years, I assumed that I had played the Sands of Time, only to suggest it for the show, and then realise I hadn't played it. So I was really happy to...
Sands of Time, it's not the first one.
In my heart, I had played it. But I hadn't. So I was really happy to sort of come back and play it. Would you guys like to have a guess at what the Metacritic for this game was on the PlayStation 2?
I would say mid to high 90s.
Do you want to put a number on that, Tony?
92.
I was going to guess around high 80s, maybe 86, 88 range.
Okay, Tony, you're on a roll. It's 92.
Oh shit!
Oh,
1 to 2. The lowest reviewer rating for this game is 80. So it was like people like this game. I'm going to read from Electric Playground, who gave it 100. They said, featuring some of the most elaborate and astonishing artwork and animation in the video game industry has ever seen. Prince of Persia definitely raises the bar on visual presentation. I've never seen more detailed and engaging art on the PlayStation 2. So I think visually, it's really easy not to appreciate that now, but it came out at the same time as Vice City, and Vice City looks like a Matchbox game, compared to this. I know it's like an open world game. Obviously, these things are, some of the resources have to be drawn elsewhere. But, the FMVs on this game were, quite good and did feel very cinematic in a way that games weren't used to being in 2003.
Yeah, the graphics definitely, I think, because I played on the PS2. I think, Jamie, you played the ports, right?
I played the remaster, yeah.
Yeah, I played on my PS2, and it's still, the graphics still, they're not top of the notch, but I think they still hold up. I think they've aged pretty well. Just the overall art direction and everything, it still works.
yeah. I was gonna say that the benefit to the visual design of the game is that there's a lot of focus, and I'm going to echo a lot of what you guys said. It does look really good, not only for its time, but now. But what I really think elevates it is that the art design enhances the gameplay. It's staged really well. You're doing parkour through this palace. Is the palace super realistic at all times? No, it's definitely not. It's still clearly a video game. But that being said, it's got a really good setting. It's got really good colors, really good environments. It all just works together to sell the myth, quote unquote, that is this game.
When I was looking back through the cutscenes today, I just realized the color was such an important part of why this game pops, and your eyes are drawn to it, and you just want to sort of keep looking at that screen. Because the lowest critical rating review for this was 80, I'm going to read a player review as the negative review. This was given 1 out of 10 by Anonymous. We're coming for you.
I hate Persia in my games. 1 star.
The only good thing is the graphics. Long save point intervals, dozens of redos, button mashing. Redos are kind of the point of the game. Button mashing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Lack of stealth, inintuitive controls, fact that time reversal, cool concept if it was implemented correctly, restores you most of the time to the point where you only have 1 unit of health left, and confusing and tedious boss battles.
Boss battles is one.
I was gonna say what boss battles exactly.
I think that's why he's confused.
Are you sure they're not talking about the sequels? Because the second one, had mini bosses.
Well, you do kill your dad, but it's not too much of a kind of bossy thing.
They don't. So you go into this cutscene, and the only reason I caught this is because I died and I watched the cutscene a second time. Go in and he's like, he looks at all the skeleton zombies, and he just says "Father," and then you fight him and kill him.
Yes,
they just don't talk about it.
Like, he gets over that real quick.
Is that actually his dad, or no? It's actually his dad. Like, okay.
And then he contradicts himself and goes, "That wasn't my dad." At the end of it,
he's like, "That wasn't my dad. That was."
It was just my dad.
The Ubisoft skeleton zombie.
This guy ends by saying, after paying $19.95, which doesn't seem like that much for this, I literally threw this game in the garbage. Believe me, I've never done this with a game before. Don't waste your money on crap like this.
When was that written?
2006. So he had time to think about it.
That's gotta be a troll. I don't see.
Do you reckon he's just played Uncharted 1 and not gone, oh, this is shit?
Long save points. I don't think this man played the same game. No. The save points were very frequent.
Jesus, it was tedious the amount of. So that was the tedious thing. How much it was you could save.
Very frequent.
When you died, if you died in a battle, you'd start right at that battle. It didn't really bring you back in the beginning of this last save point, the last save check or anything like that.
And not only that, every time you save, you get a vision of everything you're going to do up until the next save point, which is only 3 things.
If anything, the save points were very generous for the time. For 2004, games are usually oh, you died? Well, you got to start the game over again because you forgot to save. It didn't, a lot of games, kick you back to the title screen or something, and you didn't save, and so you lost 2 hours progress. So Prince of Persia was very generous.
Did you feel the visions? At one point, I thought I did a puzzle bit, and I was like, I shouldn't have looked at that on a playthrough. And I realised I hadn't looked at it on a playthrough. I'd just seen the vision for it. Do you feel like they were sometimes giving away like too much of what you had to do next?
I stopped looking at those like, pretty early on, to be totally honest.
Okay.
Like, I would see them and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's showing me what's going to be in the game. And then I was like, wait a minute. It's like just actually telling me how to progress. It was kind of useful at first because it would clue me into like new combat elements they would add. But it's not far in the game to where you have pretty much all the tools that you need. So anytime there was a save point, I would just skip through it because it's just time wasted. So I didn't really bother like 4 or 5 save points through.
Yeah, I remember when I played it again for the first time in who knows how long. You know, I'm like, oh, this is cool. Then I remembered like, oh wait, this gets annoying. So like after like the 3rd or 4th time, I just tried skipping unless I got really stuck. But then when I did get really stuck, the vision didn't help me at all. So, but yeah, it definitely wears out its welcome after a while because you kind of get into the groove and don't really need them anymore after a certain point.
And it's not like it's not heinous, is it? You're never really getting stuck too much on one bit, except for maybe one bit we'll talk about towards the end. But it's not like you're banging your head against a puzzle just going, I can't.
This is also a rather new concept for the time, too, for like 2003. So I'm thinking they just did it because, you know, it was new. It was entirely new gameplay mechanic. And so kind of a new style of a game, too. Like not many games were really, like we said earlier, you know, did this kind of parkour, this, you know, long sprawling, you know, level design, levels and everything. So I can it was probably just to benefit people from getting too stuck, even if some of it, you know, wasn't really necessary, but I can see why they did it, at least for the time.
Yes. Like story-wise, it's not, you know, it's no Casablanca, is it? But he does start in that sort of monologue kind of way. You know, most people think time is a straightforward thing. I see time as like an ocean in the storm. And you're sort of pounding along with your prince and you're with your father, who's the king, on your way to Persia. And you decide to attack a palace in India because one of the people from the palace, who's basically Jafar from Aladdin, with a touch of COVID, sort of says, come in, you can come in this way. But he's trying to trick them so he can just get this dagger that is in this palace, the dagger of time, which the king then gives to you. And so... What is Jafar's name in the actual...
I remembered him from the movie, and the movie called him Nizam. So the whole time I'm just calling this guy Nizam.
Okay.
And they never say he's just the Vizier, and I'm like,
I think it's just that, like Vizier or whatever.
Thanks again, Disney. Thank you.
So yeah, Vizier like obviously wanted this dagger because he's quite ill and he wants immortality, and the king has given it to you. So when you reach Persia, he tricks you into stabbing this big sort of hourglass which holds the sands of time, and that just turns literally everyone into big sort of sand zombies, except for you, the princess that you've taken from India, and Safir Jafar. That's the starting premise for this game. Are you in? Are you hooked?
I have to say no. I was like, I have to. In 2003, the fact that a game got this kind of level of attention in its story and plot is pretty impressive. I don't want to undersell that, but looking back on it, you know, even in a lot of games today, there are a lot of games now that just really go hard on their narrative and really push forward with that. So you have the Persians who are raiding this temple and just like killing everybody because they want this dagger or because somebody's a traitor. Why are you going to war with an entire nation over this? You're just like,
you are kind of the dicks in this game.
You're kind of the bad guy, okay? You're committing a serious war crime. And then you stab the hourglass, and everyone turns into these zombies. I get why the prince doesn't do it because he has the dagger. He has the dagger, yes. But the Vizier, Farah, nope. They're just immune.
I didn't really think about it either. I'm like, you didn't really find any other humans besides besides the two of the main characters. Conveniently enough,
I think the idea is that they've both got protective gems that are saving them. So the princess has her emblem, and I think maybe Vizier has it on his staff or something like that. But
isn't he supposed to isn't he at the end he's like, oh, I'm a wizard now, and he's doing all this weird stuff.
He said, no, I'm actually just Jafar, guys.
Yeah.
At one point, I thought he was gonna disguise himself as Farah because she was acting weird at one point. I'm skipping ahead, but I was like, okay, so it's gonna be. She's like, do it, Prince, do it. And I'm like, okay, so it's gonna be Jafar.
Yeah. Why do they have English accents, like really sort of upper class English accents, and also quite bad ones as well? They are not English people.
It sounds very authentic, Jamie. I don't know what you're complaining about.
Yeah, you hear every episode when you tune in and chat to me, don't you? But they do. Like, they're Persian, they're in the Middle East, and they've got like really like Downton Abbey like accents. It's really weird. I don't know what's going on there.
It's because voice acting. We're lucky that voice acting was at least decent for the time. So
the actual acting itself wasn't too bad. I think the script was probably a bit hammered. So after that main plot, you're going along to try and find the Sands of Time, and you're going along with the princess, and it's kind of like a sort of a hate relationship between the two of you. She's not that upset that you've killed everyone that she knows and enslaved them. To be honest, she's quite fair about that, but you're quite just a dick to her. You're like a sort of like a school kid that like fancies a girl and is showing it by kind of like punching her in the playground and like insulting her.
At first he's like, I don't like you, and then later he's like, I want to marry her. I'm like, what?
If the transition was more gradual, I definitely would have bought it. But it's just like they go from hating each other, and then you go to one of the save points, and it goes to a cutscene. And she's like holding him, and she's like, my love. And I'm like, wait a minute. This escalated really fast.
I mean, they were obviously very thirsty for each other from the very start, so.
It feels like the plot was like the first very beginning snippet of the game, and then there's one beat, which is you two kind of having a sort of will they, won't they thing, which is like, then 80% of the plot is just like that one note, like drawn out of 8% of the plot, and then you get loads of plot right at the end of the game.
I mean, originally the story, it was supposed to be a lot more convoluted, and they scaled back on it because, this is way too much of it.
Well, you got to make a good game. And
yes.
They're like, this is going to balloon out of control, and we're going to make a bad product, so let's cut back.
Yeah, apparently there was a lot of political angles, and they're like, oh, let's just do Aladdin.
Yeah. I tell you what I really did like, actually, which was the narrative device. The idea that you're being told this story by the prince in the future, and they really sort of broke the fourth wall of that. Every time you pause the game, he goes, shall I continue? And the first time that happened, that scared the fuck out of me, because I paused it and I was passing the TV and he just went, shall I continue? I was like, what the, really took me. And every time you save, you're like, we'll continue the story from here next time. Or if you die, it says, no, that's not how I remember it.
Yeah, that's an awkward story, And then I fell to my death and it's like, oh wait, no, I didn't.
And that's thematically, they're really binding in strands into the gameplay the whole time. And I thought that was more engaging than if they'd just gone for the straight plot.
Even with Farah, sometimes if she's in the same room with you and you rewind time, she's like, did this happen before? Like, she how come I remember? She acknowledges it, which was a cool little touch.
Lots of times when you have games that have a character narrating, it's usually just for effect. But what I liked is that his narration was diegetic. And I guess I won't get into this too much, but later in the game, you're like, oh, this is why that's this way. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, it was a cool little framing device.
When Farah reveals to the prince that she loves him, he's still the worst to her. He's like, I hate women, and I can't let women tell me what to do or how to do parkour, so I'm gonna just be awful to her.
Yeah, I remember, he's like, oh, I think I can break her in. Like, he's like, you walk around.
He's horrible. He's horrible for the whole thing. He's like,
she.
How dare she?
She's gonna be feisty, but if I married her, I like a challenge.
Yeah, I don't think. It was funny because obviously the remake is coming out. I don't think they'll change things like that, but it will only pass through on the skies of it being a remake of a classic game. But it kind of wouldn't fly now.
No.
I mean, also, like, I was playing this, I was showing this to a friend, and she said, all the women in this game look like they're from a porn game. And they kind of are. They're all kind of like, kind of got like boob tubes and scantily dressed. All the women of the village at the beginning, and even the zombies, like the female zombies, are unnecessarily. Everything is unnecessarily horny in this game.
I mean, they gotta compete with the Silent Hill nurses. The sexy nurses on Silent Hill.
It just, it just feels like something that probably if it was made today, they wouldn't feel the need to make it quite so thirsty.
No, there are entire games for that. You got Genshin Impact already making millions of dollars.
So let's talk about the gameplay. This was kind of a time where a game only had to have like 2 or 3 interesting ideas, and like the whole game could ride on that, and it would be like the Sands of Time, really serviceable. And the main thing that's going on here are the Sands themselves. The director, Patrice, works on Donald Duck Going Quackers. I don't know if anyone had the pleasure of playing that. I think
it's my favorite game of all time.
I actually played on Dreamcast.
Oh, did you?
I think it was all right. I mean, I think I beat it, so it must have been all right if I beat it at least.
Yeah, well, I don't know. You beat anything when you're a kid, don't you? It's just the game you get for Christmas and you're stuck with it. Whilst that game was in production, he was playing it and would get frustrated when he would like lose his lives and he'd have to go right back to the beginning of the level. And he thought, wouldn't it be interesting to have a mechanic where you could just go back a little bit to redo your mistake? That idea wasn't accepted for the game, but he did bring it forward onto this game. And it does make this whole game, doesn't it? It's
definitely the glue that I think brings it all together. I mean, the parkour parts, imagine going through, like, some of these levels can take 5 or 10 minutes just to climb up, and then imagine falling and then having to do it all over again. So, it definitely works.
It was extremely useful, and for the most part, the camera kept up pretty well with the action, but there were some times where it wasn't always clear where exactly I was supposed to be or where exactly I would end up. And in that instance, having the rewind was such a godsend.
Completely.
And then they take it away at the end of the game. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
That only highlights how important that whole thing is. It really negates any bad design when you can just literally rewind time. That was unfair. I shouldn't have died there. It wasn't clear. I can rewind time. It takes away all of that frustration instantly.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Definitely. So in the field of death, you try to jump towards something that you think you can get, and it's nope, and you just fall like a sack of rocks. So it was definitely helped you experiment a little bit more about possibilities.
And you never felt salty when you did die. And you're right, Joshua, at the end they do take it away for that final climb, and you realise how grueling this game actually would have been had they not had this mechanic in at all. I don't think it would have had anywhere near the impression it has if it wasn't in the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, I think it was just too... It felt like it was just, all of it was leading up to that final, the final end part of the game where you have to rely on your on what you learned to get through it successfully.
Yeah, it was still in an era of games where, like, progression wasn't seen as just getting more upgrades and more things. It was actually you're getting better at the game and the game's getting harder, and that's the progression of the game, which I kind of really appreciated. It also really the Sands of Time itself, like as a game mechanic, ties itself so well into the narrative of this game that it's just marrying those two really well. It's not just like tacked on for no reason and then given an excuse to exist. It is like a main pillar of this narrative.
For the time, at least, with all the limitations and everything, they definitely got the most out of it as they could.
Yeah, and I really just talking about the sort of acrobatic parts of it as well, they're kind of broken into 2 sections. You have like sections when you're in this big open area and it's basically like a puzzle. It's much, as I was saying, like it's not like let's traverse from one area to the other, like sort of modern Tomb Raider or Uncharted. It's like you need to get from this point to this point. And that part of the gameplay always felt really well designed, really well paced.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on pretty much everything you said. What I really appreciate is you talked a bit about how it's different from Uncharted, especially with the parkour, in that it's not like clearly indicated in Prince of Persia what you're supposed to climb, and in Uncharted, everything's always clear, and it's not super complex. But in Prince of Persia, not only is the climbing itself like an actual game mechanic that you really have to learn, but it's not always clear what you're supposed to be climbing. It's not always clear where you're supposed to go. So the game just lets you figure it out. And I really appreciated that. It felt like I was actually learning. There were a couple times where I would go through a scenario and I would kind of have to sit back for a moment and think, okay, which move do I use to get across here? What am I doing wrong? And then I would do it. I'm like, oh man, I'm stupid. Why didn't I think of that earlier? Like the first time they teach you, you can jump from wall to wall and then you go up. And then there's another segment where the solution is to jump from wall to wall, but because the distance is greater, you go down.
Yes.
And they never outright tell you that that's what you're supposed to do or that that's even something that you can do. But you just kind of figure out, oh, I can do this. And that was really cool.
Yeah, I agree with what Joshua was saying. Especially, when comparing to Uncharted, where, you have to figure out where to go, but if you take too long, which could range from a minute, like 30 seconds to a minute, it'll be like, oh, wait, over here. And it'll force you to know where to go. Well, this, it's like you can't figure out where to go. Well, you better figure it out, because if you don't figure it out, we're not telling you. We gave you hints already.
You've had a vision.
You had the visions already. You better just figure it out.
Combat's like a slightly different issue, though. Maybe the area that the game got the least amount of time or budget focused on. How did you find the combat?
The combat, I swear to God, it felt like there's some areas where it felt like the enemies wouldn't stop coming, and it felt more. At first, it was like, okay, 2, 3, 4 enemies, okay, 5, 6, okay, there's 2 waves, but sometimes I felt like they wouldn't stop coming. And it kind of, I'm not saying it was, but it kind of felt like, because, it's a shorter game. It kind of felt like filler sometimes.
Okay.
It was frustrating, and it didn't feel like only options I had to do was either, the most reliable options were to, jump behind them, do the little jump over them.
We all have a jump behind them.
Or jumping off the wall. Like, his little spin attack from the wall. I feel like those are the only 2 ways to, guarantee you to successfully take them down, and even sometimes that wouldn't. It was just mildly frustrating, but it still didn't really take away the core gameplay is so good it didn't really take away from it.
I think you're definitely right in the way that they have replaced deeper combat mechanics and varied enemy types with just volume. Like you would just get surrounded sometimes. It was really evident the first time you met up with the princess and you fight your dad. There's just wait, I thought like the game was, I was like, do I need to go somewhere? Are they just going to keep coming? And they all surround you. Like the AI isn't fantastic in this game.
There were times where they just started pounding on you. It was like Pound Town on the Prince. You couldn't do.
Yeah, at least invite me out to dinner first. Jesus.
You couldn't do anything. They wanted you dead, and all the sands of time would not save you, because you would just get stuck in the death loop.
It did feel like, the AI was created like the art director, and therefore the maps came in quite late in development in this game. So the AI was given quite a sort of generic behavior code, and it wasn't related to geometry. Often, in earlier builds, they would just wander off and forget about you, and that would block progress to the game. So I think the way they fix that is to have them, if they get too far away from you, they spawn quite close to you.
They just teleport to you and start stabbing you.
You're running away trying to drink the water, and you have these enemies pop up behind you and just shanking you.
Yeah, some of those, like you were saying, Tony, some of those combat sections, they just keep going, and the enemies, they do not give you an inch. And I'm all for a good challenge, but sometimes it really just felt not unfair, because you can never really tell when they're if you knock one of the monsters down and you go to stab him with the dagger to finish him off, you're never quite sure when an enemy is just going to swing at you or not.
Yeah, there's no real...
There aren't super obvious tells to where you have enough time that you can make the decision whether to go for the kill or not. And if you're in the middle of that animation and they attack you, you're just screwed.
Yeah, there's no real iframes as we'd be used to. in like modern games.
The other thing that is in the game is you can counter. If you figure out the timing, then you could counter. And this doesn't work on every enemy, but you can counter and go for an instant kill. Or what I found out is if you do a melee counter, you can melee counter pretty much anybody. And if you successfully, do this little back and forth with them and win, then you knock them down.
What's the difference between a counter and a melee counter?
So there was a melee counter. So when you're blocking, you can push one button to do a melee counter, which means you'll strike with your sword. Or you can do a dagger counter, which means you'll strike with your dagger.
But they felt very unforgiving. I never really truly felt like I knew when that window of opportunity was. Sometimes I do it early and it wouldn't get it. Sometimes I do it.
Yeah, it's a little odd. What I found was when he does so when you do the counter while he's blocking, he thrusts both of his arms forward, and it's like right as he gets to his arms stretched out, that's your window.
A true Dark Souls speaker here.
Yeah, the true Dark Souls experience. So right when you get that window as you're about to take a hit, that's when you hit that counter. So that's how I got through the combat encounters.
I just jump behind them and stabby, and then if they won't let me, I would just jump off the wall and stabby. Those are the two surefire ways to get through combat.
Also spoken like a true Dark Souls player.
There's nearly like enough different elements here. If they were a little deeper, you would have a full combat, like a satisfying combat system. And I haven't played the other two. I may have played the other one on Wii, I'm not sure. But I think they are slightly more complex, and they add in like quick time events and stuff like that and beef up that section. But it's definitely the weakest element of the game, isn't it?
The combat got more, from what I remember, it got improved, I guess, in the sequel. I don't have too fond memories of the sequel. It's also been 20-something years since I played the second one, Warrior Within, but I might be wrong. It might be better than I remember, but I remember the whole big thing about the sequel was that they improved the combat greatly so much to where there was like a lot more to it. There was like mini bosses and stuff, so... Yes,
I remember that. And I feel like maybe this game could have just used a few more bosses and that would have given a little bit more variation, but then they're not there until the end.
I didn't really need the bosses. I think it was fine. I mean, I guess they wanted the combat because if you just did all the wall jumping puzzles, they probably thought it'd be too boring, but they had slight, problems in the development if they were able to focus on the combat just a tad bit more. Like, because I know the whole problem with the enemies and they had to actually remove enemies out because of the level design.
And they also scrapped about 2 or 3 combat systems before planting on this one.
They scrapped that, and they had like levels designed already, and they had to scrap them just for the flow of the game. But yeah, if the combat, I know, if they had I know a lot of it was tied to the overall design being, kind of done last at the tail end of development, and it kind of screwed with what they wanted to do with the enemies. They actually had to remove enemies and stuff. There would have been sand tigers and stuff like that, which I think would have been pretty cool. But
just speaking of enemies, I've got written down here. It just says, "Fuck the bats and the birds." For different reasons, to be honest. The bats. So when you're doing this sort of traversal, loads of bats will come towards you, and there's no element of skill in this. You just wait until they get close enough. You stab a few of them, they go away. They come back. You stab a few of them, rinse and repeat, and then they're gone. There's like literally no point in that being in the game. And also the birds, I couldn't you just had to take damage from these birds.
Yes.
They have to get you once, or at least come in while you're like shielding, and then you go for them. And they just they slowed things down. They weren't fun in any sort of combat way. Like for me, I would have done without them.
Yep, I agree. I hate birds.
Yeah. Well, just in general in this game.
Yes.
Yes,
both.
Bird enemies. I mean, flying enemies. Come on, we're going back since Castlevania with the Medusa's heads and stuff. The flying enemies always suck. One thing I forgot to mention, which I have in my notes, is it's just a slight complaint about the controls, which was rolling and jumping on the same button is bullshit. There's a lot of times where I wanted to jump, and this motherfucker would just roll, and I'm like, thanks.
Yeah, and it was also, I mean, the last thing I would say is it's really well paced. You're never getting bored too much of one section because, between narrow corridor, traversal, open parkour, puzzle platforming, and combat. They are switching between those three like all the time. So the whole game felt really well paced for me.
And plus, the save points show you how far you're through the game, like your completed percentage, which I thought was welcome.
Whenever there was a save point vision and it showed me like I've got enemies ahead, I was like, oh fuck, I've got enemies ahead.
Oh, can I just go back?
Sometimes there's a bit where it's just traversal and you're like, that's an easy 10 minutes. Sound wise, like the music's quite interesting. It's like a mix of sort of classical, like Mid-Eastern, like fused with like quite soft guitar rock music.
Yeah, the music is really good. The ambience was nice, and juxtaposed with how you have this Middle Eastern sort of sound framework, and then you get into combat, and it just explodes with this rock guitar in at the same time. I quite liked it. I think it was really good.
Yeah, they kind of it was very nice compared to the sequel where it goes very new metal in the sequel.
Yeah, it gets a bit weird and heavy in the next couple, particularly the second game.
The second game, I think they kept them playing the same song by Godsmack or something, or the same like not this. I don't know if it was this. I don't remember if it was the song, but it was definitely like instrumental of one of their songs, and it was like the entire fucking game. Compared to this, where it was actually it was kind of like mixed with the old style music and new style music for the time. It was kind of mixed together.
Okay, can we talk about the curtains for a minute?
Yeah.
Can we talk about that? That was so obtuse. I was like, what am I doing
You
wrong?
couldn't figure it out?
I don't understand. No, I could not figure it out.
And she's like, I'm over here. Come find me. And you're like, where are you?
I didn't even get what to do in that bit. That was ridiculous.
You hear the water.
Yeah, I had to look that one up too.
I mean, I think I kind of figured it out by accident because I think I was running around in a circle, and every time I ran by this one door, it would make like the water noise, and I would go in there, and I'd go up, and I would move around.
This also sort of shows how far game guides have come, because if you tried to look up a game from 2003, they were not sequencing guides in the way that they do nowadays. It was really difficult to find out. I forgot what...
You had message boards back then, man. Game facts.
But that puzzle was obscure. But this is like kind of the last bit of the game. Everything's ramping up. The pace does feel like it's quicker. You do that puzzle to get this sword, which is a one-hit kill, which feels amazing considering you...
it's so good.
Yeah, that was
so
just... Good. Well, first you don't have the sword, and you're running... You see this room full of enemies, and you just have to fucking gun it. And then you do that, and you get the sword, and then the sword just like... I wish I had this sword in this entire damn game because
how does it insta kill enemies? We don't know. How is it getting rid of the sins? We don't know. But damn if it doesn't feel good to use.
It's also such a perfect balance between complete power fantasy at the end of the game. Oh fuckers who took me so long, like I'm absolutely piling through you now. But also you can't just like go in and just go like destroying. You still have to be slightly clever. You still have to block, otherwise you will get surrounded.
It still takes some effort, and I was still countering attacks and doing that kind of stuff. But you can still insta kill them.
And then that's and at this point you've lost your sense of time. As we talked about earlier, the last bit of the game is just this climb up this tower. I thought the verticality of this tower, this last section, just felt really good, except for the fact that you didn't have the sands of time.
Yeah, that was, like I said earlier, that was my favorite part of the game. It was all leading up to that. Everything you went through was for this last, your last run. This is your last gauntlet. It felt very well earned.
Yeah, it was really good. You were doing the wall running, you were doing the wall jumping, you were flipping on bars and shimmying across ledges, and it was really good. I agree with you wholeheartedly there, Tony.
And you felt high up. You felt like I'm on like the precipice of this tower.
Well, yeah, because I mean, you would die after you fell more than 3 feet. So,
yes, I forgot to mention that he can trip and fall. He just trips and he scrapes his knee and he's dead.
And then you get maybe the weakest boss fight I've ever seen in the game, and I have played Deadly Premonition, so I know about weak boss fights. it was awful. Yeah.
Yes, that boss fight was just a joke. An absolute joke.
I thought, actually, I remember the last boss fight, kind of. And I was like, okay.
It's against Vizier.
Then he kind of crawls outside. And I'm like, okay, so he's gonna turn into a stronger monster. He's like, I'll get you. He's like, I'm dead now.
He sends 3 clones. And for those of you listening who haven't played it, he sends out 3 clones. And you take each one down the exact same way. There's no variation. There's no different. And sometimes you'll just smack him and he'll just block you. And sometimes you'll smack him and he'll take damage. And you do that 3 times, and then you walk up and click, and he just says, "I'm dead now."
Yeah, it's you would think
you beat my clones. I'm dying now.
You would think that there's gonna be another phase, but then he's like, and then he just disintegrates. Oh, okay.
I really smiled all the way through this game. I think it's time for reviews. It is a really loved game, and I think it is just for a good reason. It is, as you said, I think earlier, Joshua, it's just so focused. It knows what it wants to do, and it does it well. And now that we're swimming in a world, for better or worse, where games are huge and they do 1,000 little different things, it feels so good to play something that's just very sure of what it wants to be and executes those things, mainly with an absolute smash. I think I'm going to give this game 8.5 out of 10. Tony, what do you reckon?
I mean, what else can you say? It's a modern day classic. I think it's one of the best games from this generation. Still talked about today. It did a lot. It's one of those games from the era that really helped define gaming as we know it today. It was very, very inspirational and all that. Unless the combat, which the combat's combat. It can be frustrating, but I hated the combat rooms. I hated them. But it didn't take away from the game. I just hated having to fight. But when it was over, I was like, thank God it's over. I can do the fun stuff now. It was just kind of I can understand why they did it. I guess just mix gameplay up, like I said, it's kind of maybe stretch the game out just a tad bit longer. But, it's still, it was just a small blemish on it was otherwise very great game. Great game. That's all I can say. I'd probably give it a 9.
9 out of 10.
I give it a strong 9 just because,
wow.
It's the impact it's had. I
feel bad for giving it an 8.5 now. Can I change? I'll give it a 9.
I mean, if you look at, I'm not looking at it through modern lenses. Modern lenses, yeah, probably 8.5, but just from the time frame, solid 9.
I'm just looking at another user review that's on my screen, and it's from Roger S, and he says, "Is cool."
Yes, that's what I was. Is cool.
2 words. Is cool. Capital I, capital S. Cool.
Chef's kiss. You can't get a better review than that.
Joshua.
Yes, shout outs to Roger S. Is cool. Would agree. 8 out of 10.
This is going to be a much quicker podcast.
8 out of 10 is cool. Awesome. But seriously, I really enjoyed it. And in context, I would definitely score it higher. Considering, a lot of things that have been done since then, I'd probably give it an 8. And judging it based on... Because I didn't play this back in the day, so judging it against a lot of stuff that I have played, I'd give it an 8. But that's not a dig at all because
you're literally playing Horizon at the moment.
Yeah, games like this just aren't made anymore. I mean, there are some, but
it's mostly indie games or AA games.
But this game would not get made today. And I know we have the remake, but who knows when that's coming out. And so I got a lot of respect for it, and I got to give it its due. And what really impresses me the most is how the parkour is probably better than most games that have come out with, quote, parkour, unquote, systems in their games.
Is cool.
Is cool. 8 out of 10 is cool. Would recommend.
that just about wraps up Sense of Time. And now we're leading to our favorite part of the podcast, Game Chasers, where we discuss the games we're currently playing.
So I've been playing quite a bit of Horizon Forbidden West. I know you guys aren't super big into Zero Dawn, but as far as I can say right now, again, shout outs to Roger S. Horizon Forbidden West is good. It's cool. I'm sorry, it's cool. So
It's cool. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I haven't beaten it. I'm nowhere close to beating it, but so far I've really been enjoying it. I think there's enough that's being done to expand on the mechanics of the first game that really keeps up the quality. And everyone's been saying Horizon Forbidden West, it looks good. Yes, it looks good, but it plays really good too. I've also been playing Final Fantasy IX. That was one of a classic game of my childhood, my favorite Final Fantasy game in the series. So I'm revisiting it to just kind of go back and refresh my memory a bit, because if you asked me what happened, my answer is I couldn't tell you. So those are the two big ones I'm playing right now.
The one thing I did what more of when I was playing Horizon, I felt like the environments are so good. What I wanted is to be able to use the environment more in combat, and it feels like, I mean, from what I've seen, it feels like they've slightly expanded, kind of like in Prince of Persia. Is that like developed a bit more? Can you use the environment while you're in combat with these sort of beasts?
Yeah, so in Forbidden West, one of the first things they give you is essentially just a hookshot. And in a lot of combat encounters and a lot of camps, there will be like watchtowers or these little poles, and you can just snap your hookshot to them and pull yourself up on top. And then a lot of other places, they'll have more like blaze barrels, or there will be log traps where you can just shoot what's holding the trap together and just send the logs down or send the rocks down, hit some machines, deal some extra damage. And there are like pulley systems that you can hit, and whatever they're holding will drop. So there's more to do with the environment. One of my favorite weapons right now is it's a spear that it attaches to whatever you throw it at, and then it'll explode. But on top of that, you can throw it into the ground, and it works as a trip mine.
I think what I wanted was a little bit more Sunset Overdrive in there, where you're really like using the environment to move around and get all like that sort of Spider-Man thing.
Oh, you're
using like sort of leverage.
I will also say the environment is a lot more climbable than it was in the first game.
Oh,
or the first game,
that was only a question.
It was because in the first game there were only specific spots. That is not the case in Forbidden West. You can climb a lot in Forbidden West, especially compared to the first game. It's not quite Breath of the Wild level, but there's a lot more you can do. And there were lots of times where I would just climb up a hill because I was being chased by a monster and I needed a vantage point.
That was my question, because when I originally played it, I want to go back and try to play it again, because I'll give it an old college try. I'll try a third time to get into it. It'll click eventually. But I remember when I first played it, we had discussed earlier, I was already playing Breath of the Wild, and my buddy got me Horizon for my birthday, and I played it, and I remember I was jumping, and I wanted to climb something, and it was like right there, like her height, she could climb it, and she didn't climb it, and I was just like, it was an instinct. I was just trying to climb it things because I was so used to being able to climb everything.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild is better than Zero Dawn, but they've taken a lot of steps to make traversal just better in Forbidden West. And you also get a glider, so you can just jump off really high spots. And
I wonder where that's come from.
Yeah, it was a completely original idea, Jamie.
Well, I mean, Assassin's Creed 2 did that too. How you got a glider at one point, I think, in Assassin's Creed. But yeah, it's definitely like, I really want to enjoy the game. I need to go back. I'll restart it yet again and try it again, because I really feel
if you can play it at 60 frames a second, I'd recommend it. It makes a lot of difference.
Maybe I'll save it for whenever I get a PS5 then, because I definitely want to go back and I want to like the game.
T, what has been tickling your fancy this week?
Oh, gee. It's a little game called, independent game. I don't know if you heard of it. Elden Ring.
Super underrated.
Super underrated. Super underrated.
When will people give it its dues?
So yeah, I'm playing Elden Ring, and I got it for the PC because I heard the loading times on the PS4 version are kind of atrocious. I also kind of regret not getting the PS4 because my buddy got it, and Joshua has it, and I have some friends to play with.
The PS4 version on PS5 runs better than PS5 version on PS5.
But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's definitely it kind of reinvents the genre, both in Souls-likes and the open worldness. It's probably one of the best open worlds I've played since. I know it's hyperbolic at this point because everyone's saying it since like Breath of the Wild.
Dude, this is the best game I've ever played. You should play it.
Well, it's ranking like that, isn't it?
Said everyone with every big release ever.
I'm just saying, I just think just the scope. I mean, it's people are confusing people saying that it's the most accessible Souls game with it being the easiest. It is not the easiest. But it's more accessible because you have the open world gives you room to breathe, and you can actually go around, find better gear.
Can you level up? Can you over level?
You can level up.
You can over level. You can over level in any Souls game.
Yeah, but just because you over level doesn't mean you're going to be any good because you can still get your ass kicked. But yeah, I mean, you can go around. There's different. You're walking around, and all of a sudden you see something come in your eye. You go down there, and it's a dungeon. Like there's a lot of cool things to do, and you don't have I got to the main story boss. He whipped my ass. So you don't have to. You can avoid him if you want. Go back and fight more. Find other secrets, get better gear and everything. Like it's just so well put together. It gives you so much breathing room. I probably won't finish it. If I do, it won't be anytime soon.
You probably won't finish it. I mean, you're speaking really highly of it. Why wouldn't you finish it?
Because I have a commitment problem with games.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's a long game, so I'll probably work my way through it. I'm not gonna finish it. Okay. I'm enjoying it a lot. It's just like there's so much. The first area alone is, I think they said, is like as big as almost as big or just as big as half of one of the. I think someone said
they were saying it was
Bloodborne.
This similar to the size of all of Boletaria from Demon Souls.
Yeah, and
which is 3 levels from Demon Souls.
It's a big area. I've been playing for about 10 hours or so, maybe a little longer. And I thought I discovered it, and I've been running all around the first area, and I'll trace my steps, and I'm still finding new things. It's just, and it doesn't feel I don't feel overwhelmed. I don't feel fatigued. It doesn't feel like it's all empty just to be empty. So it's just I think it's one of those things where a lot of even regular open world games and even Souls, I think a lot of games are going to stop following. Hopefully they'll stop taking after what they're doing of this. It's still hard as fuck. I'm not going to lie. So
any Dead Souls fan would be very upset if it wasn't. It's kind of hard because I'm always pulling this corpse through town that I prefer. I don't know. There's such an overwhelming amount of open world games at the moment, and Dark Souls, although it wasn't linear, maybe it was semi-linear. And like the game we've just played, I do enjoy that focus for a game, but it has ranked really well, hasn't it? As we were saying, it's got a 97%. There's only 4 or 5 games on Metacritic that have ranked 98. So it's being deemed as one of the biggest games of all time at the moment. Do you think that'll hold?
I'll put a caveat there too. Yes, there are some glaring technical issues. It runs on my computer. I have a fairly old setup. It runs fairly well, so the hitches don't bother me because I kind of expect that, and it still runs better than it would run on the PS4. But and there's some people they should they're reviewers should took in considerations of the performance. I can kind of see that. I can kind of see the complaints about the performance. Some people on their computer, they have high-spec computers, PCs, and they can't even play the fucking game. It's that bad for some people. So yeah, I can see that. If you're a Souls fan, I recommend it. If you are interested, I still recommend it, but it's definitely it's still definitely a kind of an acquired taste, the gameplay, overall.
This is February. We've been waiting for February for a while. Sifu has come out, Horizon's come out, Elden Ring's come out, Gran Turismo 7 about to come out. I've not been playing any of those games, what I have been playing is It Takes Two, the Hazelight Studios game, and winner of the Game Awards last year. Should it have won the Game Awards? No.
Wow.
I'm going to probably go out and say that. Have
I've
you
heard
played this game?
nothing but good things about it.
I have.
And I kind of want to play it.
I have played it.
It is good.
I played through the trial version with a friend. I haven't gone through it because I just haven't had. I don't own it, and I haven't had the time to sit down with my friend and play it online. But what I've played of it, I really liked. It's really good.
It is good. It is incredibly inventive. I mean, if no one knows it, like the premise is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the game. You are a couple who are divorcing, and your child, who is a bit eerie. And I know I've got a thing about like kids in games, but they're fucking weird. This kid, they've got like deep black eyes, and they're like crying onto these dolls with a book called The Book of Love: How to like Fix Your Relationship.
Are you judging children for crying that the parents are divorcing?
I am for this one. And then you get turned into dolls, and then you're in this sort of micro world trying to get back to where you are. The gameplay is like so creative. Obviously, this team is very talented, and like everything drips in effort. One of the earlier levels is you're like going through the interior of a Hoover, and everything's like Hoover related, and like all the sort of small things that you would find become real world sort of big objects that you can utilize. Every single stage in this game gives you new game mechanics to master and play, so you're never getting bored of too many things. It's fantastic. And also, you're not getting a lot of these multiplayer games anymore. You're not getting a lot of like couch co-op games, let alone online games that are shepherding you and a friend towards like a common goal. It really, in a weird way, it kind of reminds me of playing like Halo 3 with my friend, because like I'm just not having those experiences anymore. And when you can like talk to someone, I mean, I don't know when the last time you either of you like sat down and had a bit of couch co-op with your friend.
No, a long time. And
I'm playing it online, but it still feels, you do feel like you're there with the person. What I would say is not so great about the game is the story. I don't know if it won best narrative in IGN, but like the story is like hack. It's like about this divorcing couple who like have to realize they have to work together. And there's this sort of book who's going, hey, it's all about cooperation the whole time. And like quite cheesy. The characters are not very likable. I don't know if it's the performances. I think it's probably the script writing that's probably a bit basic. And I think it's kind of been, the only reason I say that is because it's kind of been highlighted for these things. And that's not where the game excels. That's where the game's completely sort of par. It just excels for being like a fun time and having visually like walking into a candy store. It's just completely attractive and fantastic. Maybe borderline too easy. I mean, what would you compare it to? I suppose you'd compare it to like Mario multiplayer games, or what was the place like Sackboy's Big Adventure, which don't tend to pride themselves on being very hard. But I would like sort of slightly more challenge in this. But
can the game, is it like 2-player, definitely you have to play 2-player, or is it like an AI?
You have to play 2-player, and like A Way Out, its previous Prison Break game, you have split screen regardless of whether you're online or not. And I think that makes the difference into making you feel like you're playing couch co-op even though you're playing online.
So you can't play a single player, is what you're saying?
I mean, you could if you got 2 controllers.
Oh, wow.
Cried your way through the thing.
Not that I want to play it like single player, but you know, normally...
Severely recommended to have a friend for this one. Did either of you play A Way Out?
No.
Oh.
I wanted to because the funny guy went on the Game Awards and said F the Oscars. I wanted to buy the game just for that, but I haven't gotten around to it.
His background was film, man. He made very emotional, complex films, and I'm surprised that this is so... it just feels like a film from the early 90s, like everything you can predict, like 1,000 miles down the line, and it's not got... I'm not feeling anything for the characters, but I'm not there for that. I'm not playing, you know, Spyro the Dragon, looking for the pathos.
I'm really looking for Crash Bandicoot's backstory and his emotional development as a character.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for now. Once again, we would like to thank all of you for joining us. If you like listening to us talk, you can know and you want to know have more fun of us, follow us on Twitter at PS Rumble. And if you have any questions, complaints, comments, what have you, just drop us an email at PlayStationRumblePodcast@gmail.com.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening in. Just as a reminder, our next game is Max Payne, due for April the 15th. So this is us signing off. Have a good one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. I didn't beat ODT. Did you ever play ODT? Tide Sergeant? Tie Sergeant?
I have no idea what you just said.
Side tangent.
You made noises with your mouth, but
Tide Sergeant, guys. None of that's making it.